You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Outlouders, welcome to our emergency meeting about the American election. If you've listened to the main show or you're going to, you'll know that we've kind of thrown everything out and we're starting again. Because we wanted,
like America, really.
Like America is, because we wanted to meet you where you are right now. It is, as we're recording this, nearly 4:00 on Wednesday afternoon. I am joined by Mia and Jessie and Amelia Lester, and we are doing a temperature take of where we're at. This is what's just happened as we're sitting down.
The temperature's not great.
The temperature is not great. And Nate Cohn, who is the New York Times statistician, has pretty much called the election for Trump. He said, for the first time tonight, we consider Trump likely to win the presidency. He has an advantage in each of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. To win, Harris would need to sweep all three. There is still a lot of vote left, but in the voting so far, Trump is narrowly but discernibly ahead. The Harris camp, as we're talking, are not anywhere near conceding. They say that the swing states yet to come through are looking strong on voter turnout for the Democrats. But if you're watching that terrible needly graph on a newspaper homepage and feeling a sense of dread, we've got you. We're here. Amelia, tell us, where are we at?
I think you put that perfectly, Holly. I have to speak here not as a journalist, but as an American and as a woman and as a parent. I won't say mother, as a parent. And I feel devastated. And that's because this was not a normal election. In a normal election, I wouldn't tell you how I felt about the result. But the problem here is that this was not a normal election. This was not a normal candidate. He's been found liable for sexual assault. He currently has 4 active criminal cases against him. He tried to overturn an election violently that my husband was caught up in and I thought he was going to die in. And he calls women really horrible names. I'm not even getting into his policy there. No, I'm not talking about his policies. I'm talking about why this is not a normal election.
Did you feel that way in 2016? I mean, this is very reminiscent of the emergency meeting we had in 2016, although it does feel different. Then we all thought it was a lay down for Hillary. I'm with her. We came to work in our pantsuits. We'd pre-recorded a whole lot of content about the first female president. He seemed like such a buffoon to us and such grab you by the pussy, like all of that. We thought he was such a disqualified candidate in terms of no one would ever vote for him. So when he won, there was absolute shock and disbelief, which then became quite energizing in a way and led to like the pink pussy hats in the street. And in some ways, Me Too, and in many ways, Me Too probably was a reaction to that. This feels different. And
I don't feel shock today. Like enormous.
No, I don't feel shock either.
Disappointment or even trying to get our head around the ramifications of it. But do you feel shock, Amelia?
No, I don't feel shocked.
How is it different for you?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question about how it feels different to 2016. The way I think it's different is January 6th in particular. Because we knew he was a sexist and he said horrible things about immigrants and he just seemed like an unpleasant person. And
he was unqualified and he was
You can have policy differences with people. And in 2016, we could convince ourselves that maybe this was going to be about policy differences.
Because remember, people were like, take him seriously, but don't take him literally.
This is not about policy. This is about what it says about how we think about women, how we think about living in a democracy. These are much more fundamental issues.
That's also why there are a lot of women in Australia and all around the world who also are feeling very shaken by what it looks like is about to happen. And often we don't live in America. Who cares? I mean, as an American, as you've said, Amelia, this is very different for you. But I think that's women feel that same visceral thing that given 2 choices here, but again, between a capable, qualified woman and a man who openly whips up hatred against women.
And is a convicted rapist.
They still chose him. So we also need to be clear that the people might be listening to this later and things might look different, but it is so close.
It doesn't actually matter if things look different later because we still need to ask the question of how we got here, how I am sitting here biting my nails about this man being
Re-elected.
so close to the presidency. Even if there's a miraculous turnaround for Harris, that question still remains.
I'm really disturbed by the gender split. So a lot of the research in the lead up was about how men were going one way and women were going another. And even the ads for Harris in the last minute was sort of about, you know, your husband or your partner doesn't have to know
That you're voting for her.
that you're voting for her. It almost feels like men went and did something behind women's backs. Like, and in that way, it feels really threatening.
It's not the flaw, it's the feature.
Yeah.
You were saying in the segment we recorded for the main show, which we ended
Thrown in the bin.
Talk about that rally.
I was saying how, again, to the point of why women everywhere feel so despondent, panicky about this, is in one of his final rallies, Trump was talking about Harris and he said, she's crazy, she's stupid, all the things he usually said. And he said, and he started to say the word bitch. He said, and he said, no, I can't say that. I want to say that, but I won't. And the entire crowd started chanting bitch, bitch, bitch. And that, when I even say that now, I get like a nausea and goosebumps. And I live on the other side of the world.
You've just explained for me the connection between the idea of how women are feeling and then also the idea of what it means for democracy. I feel panicky because it feels like the rules that we all agreed on have broken down.
Yeah.
One of those rules was about how elections are conducted, that you need to listen to the people and listen to how they vote and respect those results. Another is that you need to treat women with respect and like human beings. And that's why democracy and treating women this way are connected and make me feel panicky because it feels like there are no rules anymore.
I remember in 2016 when we spoke, Jacqueline Lunn was on the podcast and she said that she didn't know how to go home and talk to her kids about it because she was like, I've spent my whole life trying to teach my kids that bullies are bad and that, as you say, there's a number of rules and we teach people not to be cheats or greedy or
cruel,
mean or rude
or mock people, call them
or
names,
arrogant or criminals or unprepared or sexist or racist or
liars,
whatever it is. And it feels, this is the most ridiculous analysis, but it just shows where I'm at in my life. Amelia, do you know the song Wiggletown? It's a song about everything being, about Wiggletown that's like, it has like, the shorts are tall, the tall are short, the fish is fish, the men get caught. Anyway, it's in my house all the time. And I keep thinking, this is Wiggletown. It's like,
like it's upside down.
Everything's upside down.
Yeah.
It's like things are not as they're meant to be. And I think that's why we all feel so disoriented. It's like, this isn't how the world works.
You've also just made me think about the fact that I do have to go home and talk to my 14-year-old daughter about this. And we've talked about this before on our shows about this with you, Amelia, that one of the things that makes Trump a very effective political figure is his colour and movement and his fact he always plays the shock factor, and that kids on TikTok understand who he is, right? You know what I mean? Like he's drama. He's drama and they like that in a way. But yesterday she sent me a TikTok, because that's how we communicate these days, that was of an American who lives in Australia saying, I just voted and here's, the way that Australian Americans are voting, and it was very much for Harris. And Matilda sent me this TikTok and said, can we vote? Can we vote against Donald Trump? And that shows that my education is really poor of my daughter. But also, how do I say to her they chose that guy, even though he leads arenas chanting bitch?
I hate to say it.
Somebody's got to say
but
it.
In most states in America, or in all states in America, you can't wear a T-shirt that says Harris Walls, or Trump for that matter, into a polling booth. You can't have any kind of political slogan on your T-shirt. But in a lot of states, you can openly carry a gun into the polling booth. Now, that is not a country that we can understand. And I want to be really careful because Amelia's here and I don't want to say horrible things about America because you and I have had fights about that before, Amelia. I understand.
But it's like America is a one place.
I've got some news for you, Mia, and you're not going to like it. There was a poll done by YouGov last week in Australia, and it showed that young men are breaking for Trump at twice the rate that young women are breaking. There's basically no young women who support Trump.
Why is that bad news?
Because this is a global thing.
Oh, you're saying in Australia.
Sorry, in Australia.
Oh.
And this cultural moment where young men feel anger and like they hate women is not going to stay within the boundaries of one country.
Who did Trump get? Like,
how did this happen?
Who broke for Trump, surprisingly? Because remember last time there was all that, white women let America down because they voted for Trump more than they voted for Hillary, or what's happened? Who's he won? Whose hearts and minds has he changed?
Well, I would flip the question around and say that Harris didn't win any new groups. And that's the problem.
So Latinos, black men, like you would have thought that black people would have voted for her. She's the first black female candidate. You know, we saw Obama move so many votes. Is it a case that the only thing worse than a racist rapist is a woman? Is that what a lot of people felt?
Trump is the only president in American history to have beaten a woman once, potentially beaten a woman twice. And so we can see it as Trump.
Choice of words there, yeah.
Yeah. And we can see it as Trump winning, or we can see it as a woman really, really losing.
I want to contextualize a little bit, and this relates to your earlier point, Mia. So first of all, yes, like in Australia, young men feel in similar ways to the way that we saw young men feeling in the United States. Secondly, incumbent governments all over the world are getting voted out. People are angry generally about the state of the world. And you've seen, like in Europe, which we think of as a bastion of progressive ideals, in the Netherlands, they just voted in a far-right guy.
Don't you think that's also about concentration spans? It's like this idea of continuity. Yes. I don't think anyone gets more than one term anymore. I think those days are done.
I think it's also that there was a really good analysis by Adam Nagurney in the Sydney Morning Herald, which I think was first in the New York Times and it was republished. But he said that when citizens feel that their country is going in the wrong direction, they vote the opposite. So if you have a sense of distrust or you feel you're not happy with the current regime, then obviously you're going to vote for the other.
I also heard it said that in 2020 Trump lost because of the pandemic, and in 2024 he won because of the pandemic.
Explain
Meaning that our brains are broken. Everyone's so angry about the pandemic. The lockdowns are too long. There weren't enough lockdowns. They're angry about vaccines. They're angry about not vaccines. Everyone is angry. And why would you want to continue down one path when you can shake things up?
Yeah. So, Amelia, as Mia said, we're not sitting here going, what's wrong with America? But the thing that is also very different from 2016 is everybody knows exactly who Donald Trump is now. As you started this show laying out his credentials, shall we call them?
Access Hollywood was, maybe that was locker room talk. I mean, it wasn't entirely clear that he was going to follow through on what he said.
Maybe he'll rise to the occasion, we said.
Everybody knows exactly who he is. They know exactly what he's capable of, exactly what he'll do. And America has still chosen him. Like, it does look at this point that he is going to win decisively. We don't know certainly, but it's looking like he is. He's also going to win the Senate. So America has chosen him. And when you're going to get asked, as you inevitably are a million times over the next few weeks, why have they chosen him? What are you going to say?
Yeah, I'm glad that you raised it, because Mia's right that we have had arguments about, maybe the whole of America is just irredeemable. Not that you said that, but that's a sort of accusation I'm sensitive to. And I always want to point out to people how big America is, how diverse it is, and how polarized it is. So, for instance, in Australia, I know Labor voters and I know Liberal voters. I don't even know who most people vote for because they don't talk about it. In America, you know exactly who people vote for. And I have to tell you, and I'm going to sound like a cloistered member of the media here, I don't know any MAGA people at all. And that's how polarized it is. So I feel
that there are many Americas.
There's so many Americas. Someone asked me the other day how it was that in America it's so difficult to get an abortion, and yet, you know, gay marriage came to the US 2 years before it came to Australia. And I said that that's America in a nutshell. It's like every individual state is kind of a country. And the problem is you've got these countries that are actually much more progressive than Australia, a Massachusetts or a California, next to these states that are extremely conservative. And I feel like for the half of Americans, well, it's actually even more, I think, striking than Europe, because I think Europeans generally like bikes and agree that climate change exists and enjoy cheese and smoking. But in America, it's like so different from state to state. And that's why I feel so heartbroken for so many Americans I know who just feel devastated that they have to live in a country where women have been deemed to be not as important as men.
24 hours ago, I saw a video of Elon Musk being interviewed by Joe Rogan. And when I saw that clip that was going viral, I had a real sense that Trump was in.
What happened in the clip?
It was Joe Rogan, and this was just before he officially endorsed Trump. But he was speaking to Elon Musk, and they were having this conversation, winding each other up and talking about how important it was that Trump won. And then Elon Musk turned and he looked down the barrel of the camera and essentially said,
if the Dems win this election, they will legalize enough illegals to turn the swing states, and everywhere will be like California. There will be no escape.
That is so insane.
This is it. This is the last chance. Go out and vote. Vote like your life depends on it. Vote like your future depends on it, because it does. This was the last chance, man.
The way that he stoked the fear of immigration, I realised in that video that it felt as existential for the Republican side as it did for the Democrats, which I didn't realise until that moment. And the second thing was, I thought people will excuse everything if they are scared. And I refuse to accept that Americans are bad or evil or dumb or immoral or all of the things that are going to come through. I think they're scared. And I think
why
it's
aren't
about
they scared of the fact that women can't get abortions?
And that all the signs are showing that he is going to be an authoritarian leader who's going to dismantle the civil service.
But that's not what they think they voted for. And I think we talked about echo chambers in 2016, and I think that there's been a lot of really important work done to deconstruct them. And I think the left has done a lot of soul searching and has gone, how is it that we live in these silos? I really think that they have. And I don't think that conservatives have done the same.
But here's the thing that's interesting about that. You know how we were saying, did he win or did she lose, right? She has had the broadest church. She's had Republicans up there speaking for her. She's done all of those things. She's had every famous person in the world. She's had more money, like the Democrats have raised more money than ever, and none of it's moved the needle.
On the abortion point, I read some analysis that was really compelling to me that said the reason why that didn't move the needle is because of that state's idea that I was mentioning to you.
Yeah.
If you live in a state where you live in a Massachusetts or a California, you can be pretty sure that you will always get an abortion.
But isn't he going to make federal legislation, which is essentially the opposite of Roe versus Wade, which will override
I
the
think that
state's
feels
ability?
so hypothetical.
He's denied it.
Yeah.
He has
He's
denied it.
Oh, and he's a man of his words. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I'm not justifying this. I'm not saying it's right. But whether it's xenophobia, whether
What's he
it's
making
fear of
scared of?
immigration and the economy.
And
And
economy.
the state of
Elon
fear.
Musk was a literal illegal
Yes.
immigrant to the United States, as has been recently reported. It was interesting to me to note that
JD Vance is married to the daughter of immigrants.
But not.
Yes,
but
this is illegal.
illegal.
This is
Elon
like,
Musk overstayed a student visa
Yeah.
and started a business when he wasn't meant to. He literally broke the immigration laws.
He would be deported under the new.
And Melania, there's also some evidence that she did some nefarious stuff with her visa when she first arrived in the US too.
But to me, it's not just illegal immigrants that Trump's stoking the fears of. It's just any immigrants. It's xenophobia. It's just...
I think it's specifically this idea. It's a bit different from, say, the Brexit thing, which, Holly, you feel free to interject and tell me I'm not getting it. But to me, that was about a demographics debate. It's like, what do we want this country to look like? In the US, it's more specifically about this very simplistic idea of people coming over the southern border and then raping and pillaging.
And that is not, in a way, dissimilar to Australia's obsession with illegal immigrants and stop the boats, right? Which has won elections for Australian prime ministers, except on a vastly different scale.
I think that is such an apt comparison. Yeah. It's not a debate about, what we want the country to look like. It's not that sophisticated, unfortunately. It's more just about this idea of the hordes coming up from the southern border.
And criminals, because I heard in Republican circles talking about you've got abortion over here and women's rights, and then you've got Republicans talking about protecting women, and they think they're protecting women because they're keeping the criminals out. Like there's this
Megyn
warped
Kelly
psychology.
appeared with Trump at one of his last rallies and teared up. This is the woman who, by the way, he basically complained about her being on a period in 2016. She appears with him at this rally with tears in her eyes, and she's like, "Thank you for protecting me."
The thing is, to Elon Musk for a minute, he isn't just a famous person influencer type. He's not Beyonce. He's like the richest man in the world
who controls
almost
social
everything.
media.
And Trump buddying up to him and a few of the other big tech guys and promising them whatever they've wanted, I think without question has got to be one of the biggest parts of this, right?
I think one tweet, I would agree with everything except I think it was the tech guys that butted up to Trump.
Yeah,
Trump didn't sit down and come up with a strategy.
No.
They're the evil geniuses.
They went to him.
But
So really,
everybody
Elon's
does.
pulling the strings.
It's like Putin. It's like Kim Jong-un. They
Cardi
all know.
B's not the puppet, as Trump accused her of being. Trump's the puppet.
Yeah.
Look, we're going to wrap up, but I'm
Can't we just
feeling
stay here
today
forever with
is-
some
The
wine?
door closed and the
Because we're
lights
not
low.
checking our phones, so
The
nothing
reason
official can happen.
I
while we're
don't
in
want to
here.
go home is that women are feeling different today all around the world, I think. Sorry, not all women, but in Australia as well. Women's reactions to this versus men's reactions. Like even if you're anti-Trump, which my husband is and my sons are, they don't like Trump.
They don't have the same visceral
but
response.
It's different. My daughter and I are like, it's hard to explain. It's
so
like,
is it that word
the
panic
panic.
Holly used is the closest I've heard to how I feel.
It's fear. To me, it's fear. And it's just...
They could
it
turn on
makes
us.
me
That's what it
feel
feels like.
Like I want to
They
be
have
really
turned on
small.
us.
And it's like, oh, I thought we'd established, like what you said about, I thought we'd established some ground rules. I thought you'd established that maybe the guy running for public office doesn't just call a woman garbage and a bitch and dumb and
sexually assault
and
someone in a
sexually
change
assault
room
other
in a
women.
department store.
And it's like everyone went, yeah, he's a rapist. Yeah, he's my guy. I
Yeah.
want that guy.
There's
I choose the
something
rapist.
about that demographic of men that scares me. It's almost like this incel underworld, and that's horrible because I know that's only a very small percentage, but it's all these college bros, all these
But maybe
jocks.
it's not, Jessie.
Yeah,
I think that's
yes.
why we're freaking out.
I thought it was smaller.
Because I
Yeah,
thought
it's
it was a
bigger than we
small
thought.
percentage and I thought they wouldn't leave their houses. But because remember in the US you can always just stay at home, but they didn't. They went out and
Men
voted
came
for
out,
him.
and the women must have voted for him too. Like they must have.
No,
Well,
but a lot
we-
of people didn't. A
we
lot of
don't-
people
yeah.
in the US voted for Harris, and like that must sting today. And
And as we're talking now, we don't know. But in the days before, they were saying women were coming out in record numbers. So
Zara Curtis, who's our chief content officer, I was speaking to her the other day, who somehow managed to get through the whole Joe Rogan Trump interview.
Oh, she listened for 3 hours.
She listened to 3 hours and she said, I listened because I was waiting for either man to use her name, first or second name. And they went for 3 hours and neither of them ever said her name. They referred to her as her or she, which I think that
it's I
to
feel
me,
dehumanized.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, and we've got to be careful because it just feels very emotional. It feels like more than just, you know, there are election nights in Australia where the person you've wanted to win didn't win and it's a bummer and you feel annoyed or you feel upset or whatever. But I don't think you feel existentially under threat.
How do you think it's different from 2016?
I think in 2016 it was a shock. This year it's much more despair because we've been here. It's like last time it almost could have been a glitch in the matrix.
yeah.
And that's why I think those first couple of years were so energizing because it's like, wait till they find this out and wait till it, and something will happen and the cavalry and he'll just get kicked out or he'll be disqualified. And it's like, not only that, but he was nearly re-elected in 2020. Then he was charged with all of these crimes. Then he was convicted of being a rapist and still looks like an overwhelming victory.
And now he's got this
I don't know quite know how to
apparatus.
process that,
This-
except
yeah.
That's
with
exactly
despair.
what it is. We always thought it was glitch in the matrix and then
Yeah.
it was like the other shoe will drop.
It wasn't a flaw, it was a feature. They love this about him. They love all of this about him.
Can I ask one more question, Jessie? You said the Rogan endorsement was when you kind of knew things were not going well. Why did he do that and why did you do it so late, do you think?
I think
at
that
all
was intentional.
surprised.
I think the lateness of it all was intentional because it was on the day. That was energizing. If I'm a man and I'm trying really hard not to be disparaging because I actually think this disparaging tone that is used against men has
Part of the problem.
as part of the problem. But what I was going to say is like the man who's sitting in his basement got up and went and voted because it was new and it was the first thing that like I woke up to. It was a headline. It was a headline that ran everywhere. It was genius. It was just like
and
at
also
the 11th
for
hour.
the same reason that the Washington Post, owned by Jeff Bezos, who went against what's been happening for the last sort of 20 or 30 years and didn't endorse either candidate. Everyone was talking about that and the surprise and the analysis was that it's called something anticipatory obedience, that everybody knew, including Joe Rogan, including Elon Musk, including they sniffed the wind and they knew if they went against Kamala, they wouldn't be punished if Kamala got in. But if they went against Trump, he's got a burn book.
yeah.
Do you
But not
really
only-
believe that?
But
Yeah,
not only a
100%. Are you
not only
kidding?
a burn book, he has been clear about punishing his enemies.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things he's most well known for is
Yeah.
his streak of intense revenge. So there'll be a lot of people in American media and politics right now packing their bags. I want to know, what do we leave our Outlouders with? Obviously, as we say, it's Wednesday night. We don't know for sure, but this is the way it's all looking.
I've got one bit of hope. So, as I said at the start, things work in pendulums, right? And I think one of the things that came out of a Trump presidency was Me Too. And I think that there's something that can be quite galvanising and quite organising and almost unifying.
But we've just seen that, Mia. We've just seen this enormous swell of support for Harris.
Okay, I've got nothing.
Every famous person, all the volunteers,
like
an
when
enormous
we ended,
ground
tell me it's
army.
going to be okay. Because they're like, no.
I don't think the problem here is that the left haven't been galvanised. I think a lot of the blame will probably end up falling on the Democrats, and Biden should have resigned sooner, and they didn't go through the right process, and she was never a strong enough candidate, and the nation wasn't ready for a. We'll see all that, but it's too soon for that now. But I think you can't argue that they haven't tried hard.
I have a bright spot.
Go.
Thank God.
Trump's a bit miserable too. Like, he looks tired. Yeah. There was the swaying at the rally. I mean,
I don't think
he's not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
But if he goes off to play golf, who do he leaves in charge and not the people you really want in charge? JD, Don Jr. Like, I'm not that excited. I'm sorry.
Stop
I just screwed your bright spot.
I think 2016 was about echo chambers, and I think 2024 is going to be about gender. I think that's going to be the thing that's going to be the next 4 years.
We never really got there with Hillary. Because you said this to me recently. You said the reason we didn't get there with Hillary is because she was a Clinton. So there was so much baggage there.
I think echo chambers got worse.
But there's also always an excuse for why a woman isn't the right woman. It's always like, well, she was a Clinton and Harris is of colour and the nation isn't ready for that. And that woman will be this and that woman will be that. There's always a reason why the
Until
woman...
you stop putting women forward because they don't work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I
prefer the rapist is what the popular vote seemed to say in America.
You know what I'm going to do? I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. I'll be checking in. I'm going to turn my fucking phone off. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Until Friday, when we upload, we're going to do a Friday episode where we do not talk about the election one time because of escapism and distraction. So there we
Correct.
go. There's
We'll
your
be back in
hope.
your ears on Friday with nothing about this dark day.
No, nothing. Not a single
Thank
thing.
you, Amelia Lester.
We love you. Thank
For
you,
all you've done
Amelia.
for
Thank you.
us.
Thanks, everyone.
Big hugs, Outlouders. That's all we've got. Chocolate, ice cream, coffee.
Bye.
Bye.